guys, I'm Jenna and welcome to Talks in Class. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope everyone has had a great week. Next week is Thanksgiving already and it's finally really feeling like November here. It just got super cold kind of out of nowhere, so I'm kind of in cozy mode and I'm just excited for Thanksgiving next week. We always spend it with my husband's family in Connecticut, and even though I actually really don't love Thanksgiving food, it's definitely my least favorite holiday meal. I just love Thanksgiving in terms of how we celebrate it, because I don't know about you guys and your family traditions, but for us, it's literally a day built around eating. It's like a marathon meal, and then, just being kind of lazy and like napping in the middle of the day. And I really support all of those things. Plus, it is the kickoff to the winter holiday season, and I am obsessed with all things festive. I'll watch a Christmas movie every single night of December. I love it so much. So I'm just very excited, even though I'm not huge on the cold. It's always nice to have that change and kind of, slow down and just be kind of cozy. So this year, we will be spending Thanksgiving in Connecticut as always, but we'll actually be, kind of living there because we're staying with family for the month of December before we head out to LA. So that will be fun. As always, I will start the episode with my what good happened. I actually really encourage all of you to do this little exercise every day at some point, even if it's just thinking about it before you go to bed. You can write it down if you want to, but you don't have to. It's just so nice to acknowledge and take a moment to think about those positive things that happen throughout the day. I know that sounds cheesy, but it really can help, especially during busy times of year. Like, I know the holiday season can just feel really hectic and kind of stressful. So it's nice. It's nice to remind yourself of those little things that happen that are good. But anyway, my what good happened this week is actually a very large what good happened. I avoided a major computer catastrophe last week. Actually, last week, right after I recorded the podcast, my computer just pretty much stopped working. It wouldn't do anything. I couldn't get it to respond to most things. And my computer is very old, so I've kind of been anticipating having to buy a new one soon, but it's not something that I was really looking to do right before a cross-country move and also right before the holidays. So long story short, I called Apple support. They gave me sort of a last resort thing to try, and it did not work. It made things way worse. So I was all mentally prepared to have to go buy a new computer the next day, and then I was able to talk to a couple more people and someone found a solution. So we're back in business. Everything on my computer, knock on wood, for now is working honestly perfectly. So it was a huge relief. So last week we talked about the mall, and I mentioned that I might do a part 2, and I decided to do it because I have more to say about the mall. It's such a fun conversation, and I wanted to be able to dive in a little bit more to specific stores. So that is what we're gonna do today. But before we do that, I do want to give another shout out to my clothing rental service, Jenna Barclay Style Box. With the holiday season coming up, it's a great way to add variety into your wardrobe and also have access to new items and outfits for all of these holiday get-togethers and events and parties without having to buy a bunch of new clothes that you may only wear once or twice, which is amazing. So Jenna Barclay Style Box gives you access to a ton of items from a bunch of different brands, many of which you already know and probably have shopped before. And my favorite thing about it is that you get unlimited swaps, so you can wear something one time and then send it back and get something new without having to purchase it. I actually just got this sweater that I'm wearing earlier this week, along with a pair of jeans that I never would have bought this pair of jeans because they're definitely a look, but they're really fun and they're cute. I've been wearing them a lot, so I'm loving having the options available. I also think it would make a really great gift, especially for someone in your life who's maybe starting a new job or heading back to the office for the first time in a long time. So the first month is completely free. If you'd like to give it a try, you can head to jennabarclaystylebox.com and just click get started. Your first month will automatically be free. Again, that is jennabarclaystylebox.com to try it out. I hope you love it. So speaking of clothes, let's talk about the mall again, shall we? I actually went to the mall near me, near where I live, on Monday because I had to get a new phone. It apparently hasn't been the best week for devices around here. And I can't really even explain the feeling that I get when I walk into a mall. I've talked to some people who say that they dislike the mall, and I truly don't understand it because I have the exact opposite reaction. I love it. It's truly pure happiness and comfort and just definitely nostalgia, but honestly, it's just this feeling of comfort. I think that's the best word that I can use to describe it. Comfort and joy. It's like the holidays wrapped up into a place. I just love it so much. And I think a big part of that feeling that I have towards it is my personal relationship to the mall and how much I did love it growing up. But I also think it's partially because I have lived in a very urban area now for about a decade, and you know, New York City isn't exactly the land of malls, so the mall feels kind of like a novelty. And I think that that's starting to feel more and more like the case for so many people because malls just aren't where we go to shop anymore. So something that used to feel very common and very normal and everyday now feels a little bit more novel, which is weird. It's weird for me to think of it that way because it was such a staple of my youth and my adolescence. The mall near me, it's the Newport Mall in Jersey City for anyone who's local. That mall has a ton of stores that feel really nostalgic to me because they're stores that I used to shop at a lot. They have Bath & Body Works, they have American Eagle, Hollister, they have a giant Forever 21, Spencer's, Victoria's Secret. I mean, so many of these stores that I remember shopping at. So I have a series of stores that I always hit every time I go to that mall. But on Monday when I went to Bath & Body Works to buy a candle. I went in for a specific reason. But there's just something about Bath & Body Works, you guys. Even as an adult, I just turn into a child when I walk in there. I mean, the scents do assault you as soon as you walk in the door, but I don't know. I love it. I'm like, where's the country apple, please? Like, they had Christmas music cranking, and there is so much stuff everywhere. You can't even really navigate around the fixtures. It's a special place. It's a special place. And it reminds me of shopping there as a kid, but specifically around the holidays, because I went through this phase in probably late elementary school where my friend group and I only gave each other Bath & Body Works gift sets. That was the only gift that we exchanged for any birthday, holiday, whatever. So you would have a birthday and you would just receive 10 gift sets from Bath & Body Works in various fragrances. You'd have a Juniper Breeze one and a Country Apple one and a Sun-Ripened Raspberry one and whatever. And we were happy with that. I mean, we were thrilled with that. We friggin' loved it. So this mall trip really had me in my feels, but it also got me thinking about all of the specific stores that I loved so much shopping in malls and why I loved them so much. So for today's episode, I am going to count down for you my top 20 favorite mall stores of the 90s and 2000s, mostly 2000s. And they're going to be ranked from this was cool, I liked going in there, to this store was my entire identity. Now, I have to say before I dive into this list that these are my personal favorites, and by no means is this an exhaustive list. I actually had to make some very savage cuts because we don't have all day here. But also, I did grow up in the Midwest and we didn't have every store. There's actually a lot of stores I've heard people talk about that we just didn't have, so they weren't on my radar. So without further ado, I present to you my top 20 mall stores of my youth. Number 20, starting off with The Body Shop. I don't know if this is just me, but for some reason The Body Shop felt more upscale or maybe just more mature than Bath & Body Works. And I don't know if this is because we didn't have this in our local mall, so we could only go to The Body Shop if we were visiting like a large mall in a big city, so it felt fancier, but I always felt like it was a little bit more mature. But what I remember the most about The Body Shop is their tea tree line for acne. I went all in on this line, you guys. I did not use Proactive ever. I used the tea tree line from the Body Shop. I had all of it. I remember the mud mask specifically because it was this really bright green and the smell of the tea tree was so strong. I swear you could smell it like down the block. I can still smell, I mean, it smelled like sniffing tea tree oil straight out of the bottle. I am pretty sure they still make that entire line. Also, they made this shimmer body lotion when I was in high school. I was obsessed with it. I literally felt like a pop star, like walking into my small town high school with all of my limbs like shimmering from this lotion. Way to go, Body Shop. I mean, 10 out of 10. Number 19 is Maurice's. I feel like Maurice's just doesn't get the credit that it deserves. Like, no one talks about Maurice's, but I loved Maurice's. It was one of the first stores that I remember like going out of my way to shop at when I was young and just starting to really care about buying clothes, like late elementary school, early middle school, late 90s even, pre-Y2K. And it's also the first store that I ever remember going to in order to purchase a specific brand of jeans. And those jeans were Silver brand, not just jeans. No, my friends. Silver brand overalls. And when I say I thought that I was killing the fashion game, this is the outfit that I chose to wear with my Silver brand overalls. I want you to picture it. A baby blue, plain like baby tee, the overalls, and then my Adidas slide sandals with socks. Oh yeah, picture it, absorb it, imagine it, take it in. That's fashion. Number 18 is good old Forever 21. I actually have a pretty fun story about this. It's also embarrassing. I remember the first time I ever saw a Forever 21 store. It was in February of the year 2000, and it was in Hawaii. And the only reason I went in, and this is embarrassing, but I will tell you anyway because I like to embarrass myself on the internet. The only reason I went in is because my middle school boyfriend's birthday was on the 21st. And I used the word boyfriend, obviously in air quotes, because we were in 7th grade. So his birthday was on the 21st, and when I saw Forever 21 store, I was like, oh my God, it's his birthday, like it's a sign. Ugh, yikes. So I went in and of course was introduced to the glory that is Forever 21. And I don't remember really seeing one for years after. Certainly it wasn't on my radar during high school, but in college, you guys, in college, Forever 21 was my jam. I bought every item of clothing that I owned pretty much at Forever 21 in college. Every bodycon skirt, every like cheap long necklace, every bubble hem dress that I bought for $12 to wear out on a Thursday night. It was my absolute go-to store. Number 17 is Limited Too. Okay, before you panic, Limited Too is not as high ranking on this list as you might imagine because my local mall didn't get one until I was past the age where I really would have shopped there for clothes. So unfortunately, I missed the excitement of being able to shop there for like trendy tween clothes. But as I've mentioned before, the photo booth at Limited Too was the destination in the mall. It was so cool. If you don't remember, the pictures would print out on little stickers, and I had those stickers everywhere. I had them in my car, I had them on my notebooks in school, I had them in my locker. They were amazing. So thank you for that, Limited Too. And also, I am sorry that we were in there all the time and probably never bought a single thing. Sorry. Number 16 is The Gap. Okay, The Gap is a classic. I almost didn't put The Gap on this list because it doesn't seem exciting, but there are so many iconic things about The Gap from my youth, particularly around that Y2K era, late 90s, early 2000s. First of all, the grass scent still lives in my mind. It was absolutely amazing. I loved it. I would do anything. If they brought that back, I would buy the entire line. I'm telling you, it was so good. Also, the Y2K era commercials by The Gap are absolutely iconic. They had so many. They had that swing one. They had the khaki one. I'm telling you, just look them up on YouTube. It will transport you back through time. And then, of course, who can forget those giant hoodies that just said Gap across the front? I don't know if this was a thing anywhere else, but in my middle school, we lived for those Gap hoodies. I begged my mom for it, and I remember it being like really expensive for what it was. So I think I got it as a gift for like my birthday or some holiday, but I felt really cool walking into my middle school with just Gap written across my navy blue sweatshirt. Number 15 is PacSun. The surf aesthetic had me, you guys. It had me. And PacSun was one of those standby stores for me. It wasn't the destination. I never went to the mall specifically to go to PacSun, but there are a couple things that I specifically did go out of my way to go to PacSun in order to purchase. Number one is anything by Roxy or Billabong, but specifically around 2003 when Billabong decided to just make a series of shirts that just said bong across the front of them, and teenagers like me flocked to buy them because we thought that was so funny and so clever and so rebellious, and then obviously all of our high schools banned them immediately. Also, they had these perfumes at PacSun, and one of them was in a round bottle, and I want to say it was green, but the other one was in just like a regular kind of taller clear bottle, and I think it was called Lilu or something like that. It smelled incredible. I looked them up on eBay a few months ago because I was talking to somebody about them, and they're of course selling for hundreds of dollars, but PacSun, if this message can somehow reach you, I need Lilu back in my life, okay? All of us millennials need to be reminded of the happiness that we felt when we went into PacSun to buy a Roxy tank top, and we went up to the cash register and just doused ourselves in that stuff before we left the store. Amazing. Number 14 is Barnes & Noble. I still love Barnes & Noble. There's something about Barnes & Noble that is like peak comfort. But when I was young, there were really 3 reasons that I loved it. One is the obvious book factor. I've always loved to read, so I did genuinely enjoy going in there for books. Number 2, though, is their journal section. They had in my Barnes & Noble a whole wall that was just journals, and they were the coolest journals. I had one in the 90s that was like the sun, moon, stars aesthetic. You know, it was navy with gold, sun, moon, and stars on it. I thought it was so cool. And then in middle school, I had one with a big yin yang on the front, which I actually still have. And yes, it is my middle school journal. And yes, it is extremely painful to read. But I remember thinking that it was extremely cool because it was from Barnes & Noble. And then number 3, of course, is Starbucks. Because in my day, when I was a teenager, our town didn't have a Starbucks. So if you wanted to get your Frappuccino fix, you had to go to Barnes & Noble. And of course, when Britney Spears decided to go all in on Ugg boots and Frappuccinos and hot Cheetos, I was in Barnes & Noble at least weekly to get myself a Frappuccino with all the whip. Number 13 is Wet Seal. Wet Seal stands out in the realm of super cheap fast fashion to me because it is the only one that our mall ever had. And when I was in early college, I bought a lot of tacky tops there, like a lot. And I actually even worked there for one holiday season, and I don't really remember much about it except for I remember I bought this giant gold metallic purse. I mean, it was like the size of a suitcase because this was probably 2006, and I used it for maybe a month, and then all the gold started peeling off the side. Number 12 is Spencer's. Spencer's just feels like a millennial rite of passage to me. It was just one of those stores that we all loved to go in and wander around, but I mean, I don't ever really remember buying things there. I think the only things that I ever really bought there were probably some posters and maybe a lava lamp in the 90s, the late 90s. And I think I did get my Playboy Bunny belly button ring there because Piercing Pagoda and the other places that I used to buy belly button rings didn't have Playboy ones. But for the most part, we weren't buying anything. We were just browsing because it was always good for a laugh. They always had weird things, but they also had things that felt a little scandalous. And even as teenagers, it felt a little scandalous or rebellious to go in there. I don't know. There was just something about it that felt like maybe we shouldn't be in here. Maybe we shouldn't be looking at these items. Hee hee, we're so rebellious. I just have such a soft spot in my heart for Spencer's because it really does feel nostalgic. It feels like one of those universal experiences that we all had at the mall as millennials. Number 11 is American Eagle. Okay, confession, American Eagle still has me. I still love me some American Eagle. The thing about American Eagle that sets it apart from like Abercrombie, Hollister, Arrow, those kinds of stores is that they've always done a really good job of mixing the kind of classic all-American preppy look with a little bit of a boho flair. And I have always been all here for that, all about it. I really, really always loved it. It was one of my go-to stores. But again, being from a small town, this was the only one of those types of stores that we actually had in our mall. So it was extremely popular with kids around my age. But there are a few things about American Eagle specifically that stand out to me about that era, that very early 2000s era. Number one is they had these halter tops and tube tops that were just plain colors, but some of them were reversible. And I think there were a couple colorways that came in a stripe. I remember a green stripe for some reason, but I swore by these halter tops. I think I had 4 colors of the halter tops, and I had a tube top that was reversible, blue with light blue. So cool. I definitely felt very mature wearing that because I was like 14 years old. I wore it with one of the bras that had clear straps that I bought at Kohl's. Oh my God. The other thing that I really remember about American Eagle are those chunky leather boot shoes that we all had, and they would come with like red laces or yellow laces. Those were my go-to shoes for the winter time. I would get one pair a year and I would just wear them into the ground every single year. And then the last thing that stands out to me about American Eagle is I had a winter coat from American Eagle. It was light blue. It was like a ski jacket. And I think I had that for all 4 years of high school. I'm pretty sure I got it maybe even in 8th grade, and I wore that till I graduated. So it must have been really expensive, or I must have just really loved it because I was really committed to that winter coat. Number 10 is BB. Oh yes. All I need to say about BB is the rhinestone BB logo t-shirts. Man, I thought I was fancy in that thing. I had a pink one. It had cap sleeves, and it was a really sheer fabric, so you had to layer a tank top underneath it. It was my favorite shirt for probably a solid 2 years. And when I wanted to be really fancy, I would pair it with this black pleated skirt that had these 2 little tiny buckles on the hip and pink heels. Yep. And I walked into my high school shamelessly wearing that outfit. Number 9, now we're really getting into the good ones. Number 9 is Afterthoughts. If you remember Afterthoughts, you're a real one, okay? This is definitely a 90s store. I think it was probably gone by the 2000s, at least it was in my mall, but Afterthoughts was basically Claire's, but cooler. And I don't know why it was cooler, but I can definitively say that it was absolutely cooler than Claire's. They sold all the stuff that Claire's sold, and I might have gotten one of my piercings at Afterthoughts rather than Claire's, one of my ears. But they also sold Bottled Emotions. They sold all the Bonnie Bell lip stuff like Flip Sticks and Lip Licks and the Cappuccino lip gloss that I was obsessed with even though I was like 10. And they had their own private label makeup collection. And I would get this shimmery cream eyeshadow that came in a little like pot thing, and they had their own nail polishes that I loved. I still remember what the logo looked like. I mean, this store was the coolest. I lived for going to Afterthoughts, like after school on a Friday, getting a pretzel, going to Afterthoughts. I was living the whole dream in like 1997 at Afterthoughts. Number 8 is Deb. I don't even think that I've talked about my love for Deb, so we need to dive into this. I feel like Deb gets this reputation of being trashy or tacky or just, a fast fashion-y kind of place. But I am here to tell you, Deb was amazing. Deb was amazing. They had a sea of homecoming dresses in every single color, every cut, every fabric, so much glitter. They sold matching cloud pajama sets. They sold those Spice Girl lollipops in the 90s. They had a whole wall of scandalous thongs and like cool, funky patterned socks. They were also the only store that I remember in the mall in the 90s and early 2000s that sold plus sizes. They had a whole plus size section. Go Deb. Number 7 is Gadzooks. Gadzooks was so cool, you guys. Way too cool for me, if I'm being totally honest. I don't know if it was every store, but I remember that they had like a old VW Beetle car or part of the car in the store, and I thought that was so cool. I really started shopping at Gadzooks in 2003 because that is where you could buy Von Dutch things in my mall, and I went hard on the Von Dutch. I can't really overstate this. I went all in on the very short-lived phenomenon that was Von Dutch. So I went to Gadzooks often. And I definitely remember it feeling cool or maybe just edgy. Like I didn't quite fit in there and that was clear, but it made me feel cool to be in there, even though I was probably always in there with my mom. But anyway, Gadzooks is sadly long gone. I honestly would go to a Gadzooks museum if they just recreated a store so that I could walk around in it and feel what it felt like to be in there again, because it is one of those stores that will always stand out in my mind as a very fun, exciting place to shop. Number 6 is Bath and Body Works. Full nostalgia, just like I said at the beginning of the episode, there's something about Bath and Body Works that just takes me back to being a kid. Before we dove into makeup or beauty products, we had Bath and Body Works. We had art stuff. We had body glitter. They had so many cool things there. Remember those big chunky chapsticks that they had, and they would have all these cool holiday things. I remember one year getting a body spray that was actually a snow globe, and the top of the snow globe would lift out of the base, and when you turn it upside down, it had the spray stuff. So they were so good at making these novelty things, and they have kept enough consistency over the years to make it feel really nostalgic. And speaking of that, I have heard rumors that they're going to bring back the Sun Ripened Raspberry scent, which was one of my absolute favorites in the 90s. And if they do, I will be first in line to buy all of it. Number 5 is Victoria's Secret. Of course. I mean, bombshell bras, Love Spell, Victoria's Secret pink sweats with pink written across the butt, even though the sweats were green or purple or any color except for pink. Those little stuffed dogs that we would gladly shell out $200 with so that we could get it for free. 5 for $25 panties. I mean, I could go on and on. This was the place. And again, Victoria's Secret felt mature when we were in high school. When I would venture in there to buy a bottle of Love Spell, I always felt a little bit like, ooh, haha, we're in Victoria's Secret, like we're in an underwear and bra store. But really, the launch of the pink line and targeting college students was the moment that Victoria's Secret got me. I mean, I was so fully committed to the pink aesthetic in college. And honestly, I still like going in there when I go to the mall. And there's a body spray that I still buy. Number 4 is Buckle or The Buckle. In my town, I feel like we called it The Buckle. For some reason, The Buckle feels very Midwestern to me. I'm not really sure if this is factual or if this is just in my mind, but it does. It feels very Midwestern. It was a store that we all were obsessed with. And when I'm thinking about a lot of these stores, one of the themes that keeps coming up for me is how expensive these stores were to shop in the 2000s. And I think it's partially because fast fashion just hadn't taken over the way that it is now. It's so prevalent now. But the Buckle really was extremely expensive. They sold all those really high-end jeans labels like Miss Me. But I was shopping at the Buckle before that. I was shopping at the Buckle like Y2K, early 2000s era, where you could buy Lucky brand. They had their own jeans brand, BKEs. Those jeans were the best jeans. And because of the BKE brand of jeans, I was loyal to the Buckle for years, definitely all through high school and into college. Now we're getting into the top 3. Here we go. Number 3 is Abercrombie. I know, it's number 3. It's not number 1. The reason that it's number 3, even though Abercrombie had such a massive impact on our culture and certainly on me as a teenager, I didn't shop at Abercrombie as much as I shopped at other similar stores. It was really expensive. I mean, I talk about a lot of these stores and a lot of them were expensive for what they were, but Abercrombie was like ridiculously expensive. When we really think back to it, I mean, a pair of jeans at Abercrombie in 2004 could be $130. That's expensive to me now, but in 2004, I mean, that's insane. For the most part, the items that I got from Abercrombie were not those basic pieces. They were more special items that I got as gifts. So I have a winter coat from Abercrombie. I had one of those fur-lined hoodies that I felt really fancy in. I do have a couple pairs of jeans, and then I had graphic tees and things like that, but it just wasn't as accessible as the other stores that were similar for essentially the same thing. So even though I loved going there and I loved to shop there, if I was going to buy something that honestly didn't say Abercrombie across the front, I'd probably go buy it at American Eagle for cheaper. Number 2 is Express. Express, this may seem very high on the list for Express, but Express was my whole personality for a lot of high school. I have no idea why I was so obsessed with Express, but I really loved it. And looking back, I think maybe it's because a lot of these other stores zeroed in on kind of an aesthetic. Like PacSun was very surf inspired. American Eagle was very all-American with a little bit of boho. But Express had a little bit of everything, and I think that they did that really, really well in the 2000s. They had their professional clothes, and then they had their jeans line that was a little bit more casual, and then they had their trendy clothes, so you could find a little bit more variety there. But whatever, it doesn't matter why, I loved it. I was obsessed with Express. The day I turned 18, I went to the mall and I got a job there. And I worked there and I bought the entire store. I don't think I ever took home $1. And now, number 1, my top mall store of my youth goes to none other than Hollister. I actually thought really hard about this because there were so many stores that obviously influenced my fashion sense and that I love to shop at, but I think Hollister gets the number 1 spot for a couple of reasons. One, it was obviously just a really influential, impactful store and brand of the time, and I fully bought into that. But 2, of these stores that feel very 2000s, it was the one that I actually shopped at the most. I loved the surf vibe. We know this. It was also a tiny bit cheaper than Abercrombie. You could usually find a really similar item at Hollister, and it would be a little bit less than it was at Abercrombie. And also, it was more fun to hang out in Hollister. 1, they sold more colors besides just navy, white, and gray. And 2, they had the live stream of Huntington Beach that you could watch on the screen, which I always thought was really, really cool. I was like, oh, I can see what people are doing in California. They had the music screen where you could see what they were playing in the store. It just felt a little bit more inviting, even though I realized that these stores, their entire brand revolved around exclusivity and not being inviting, but Hollister felt a little bit less scary than Abercrombie. I also worked at 1 shift at Hollister when it opened in the mall near me. We did not have one in my mall throughout my entire time in high school, but I was fortunate that when they first opened, they hired me, and I lasted 1 day. It was not good. So there you have it, my top 20 mall stores of the 90s and 2000s. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for joining me this week to talk even more about the mall. I think I'm done with the mall for now, but never say never. There might be a part 3 sometime in the future. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, show your love however you choose to. I will be back next week. Have a great week. See you then. Bye.